Well, welcome everyone. It's a little bit after 6, so we'll get this underway. This is the fourth in of our series put on by the Men Prayer and Study Group. It's called Northminster Presents, where we're trying to bring items and topics of great social interest to our community and things that melt and meet with our world in Matthew 25. Tonight we have a presentation on gun violence and what's going on about that in Indianapolis. I'd like to introduce Karen Walker. She is a member of the Third Thursday Ecumenical Social Justice Group, which I hope she will explain to us what that is, as well as Curve. I'll tell you what that is in a second as well. She's a member of First Congregational Church up here on the north side and has been active in Church Women United, Bread for the World, Faith to Indiana, and she is a retired executive from the Eli Lilly Company. She also has 5 grandchildren, which to me makes her an expert on everything. CURVE stands for Congregations United to Reduce Violence. It's focused on developing community-wide support for the Gun Violence Reduction Strategy, GVRS, being implemented by the city of Indianapolis to reduce gun violence. There's been studies that have shown that it has had a significant impact upon gun violence. And with that, we will turn it over to Karen. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Ooh, this is great. First of all, I want to say thank you. I really appreciate you in inviting us to participate in this wonderful program that you've got, where you're exploring all the social justice issues. We know there's a million of them out here, and we appreciate this opportunity to share what our group is doing with you, especially on such a nice night as tonight. The group I am from, that Ecumenical Social Justice Group, actually is led by St. Luke's Methodist. They meet once a month with people from 20 to 30 different churches and different faiths, also Jewish and Muslim representatives, on all different types of social justice issues. And that's a place to share programs, ideas, actions to take that then get passed out through all those churches. And people from this church would be welcome to join in to that group. What happened was, and I'm gonna tell a little story with us as we go here. A few of us, and it started with Mary Boggs, who is one of our fearless leaders. Thank you for coming tonight, and Anthony Beverly. We decided to start a small group to try to understand the horror that is the gun violence that has grown and grown in our city. We can pray, we can have candlelight vigils, but what can we do? And we really wanted to try to understand that. And we got together and came up with some things that we are excited to share. So that's why we are here. We are hoping to educate other folks and build a community voice to support what we think is a great solution for part of this problem that is actually focused on redemption for people. So we are on Facebook, and you search for Curve Indy, that will find us. We're going to pass around sign-up sheets. If anybody wants more information or to see, for us to send an email to tell you what's going on or anything, you can share whatever information you're comfortable sharing so that we can send things to you. But don't feel like you have to share anything you don't want to. I'm not trying to take attendance or anything, just if you're interested. So, okay. I get very passionate when I talk about this. It is very easy to get lost down in the statistics of how horrific this is. So I want to start by, that baby. Okay. I want to start by recognizing that at the heart of all this are people. This is just this last weekend in Indianapolis. 4 people were killed in gun homicides in Indianapolis. On the 10th, on Friday, Abdikadir Falanwi was shot. On the 11th, there were two separate incidents. Israel Saavedra Delgado, and then someone who I don't think they've released the name yet. In the news, they've been trying to contact the families. And then on Sunday, Paul Wade. These four people, just this weekend, lost their life due to gun homicides. So I would like to take just a moment of silence to lift them up in prayer and their families and everyone who is impacted by this. We cannot just think about it as numbers. So let's just take a moment and grant them grace. I have not had personal connection to gun violence. But what I have read is 40% of all adults have either been experienced or had a loved one involved in gun violence. And think about just the people in this room, how many people that is. This is an epidemic. We don't need to talk about that. We all know that this is an epidemic, okay? There are lots of different categories of gun violence. When we started looking at it, we realized just how complex this is. You can't possibly cover all of these. Our purpose, and we'll get to this, is about street gun violence. When we think about the homicides that happen day after day, week after week, those are the ones we are talking about. There are some common things about each of these, and there are some unique things about each category. And our category is street gun violence, which I will talk about in a minute. So let's see. Beyond the human toll. Oh, yes? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. No, that's fine. Is it there? Okay. Okay. Let's see if I can do this. Obviously, this is a even bigger problem than just the direct human problem, okay? When you think about it, as the number of these incidents increase, the culture of fear increases. There are so many people who are scared to leave their home. They cannot let their children play outside. Then there's economic impacts. Those neighborhoods get more depressed. Businesses leave. It just spirals. Everything, the taxes fall, the property values fall, it spirals. And on top of that, it brings in more violence. As violence takes hold, more violence comes in. This impacts everybody. So, as we look at it, I'm going to try not to use those. Root causes are really complex, okay? We can say poverty, racism, systemic racism, both current and historic, all play a role. This is a big, complex problem. This is not something that you can just put a Band-Aid on and take care of, all these different gun problems. Mental health is an issue. Everywhere you go, you can see one of the causes that leads to gun violence. And then when you think about it, there's just as many solutions. That's one of the things we ran into, was anything that helps improve the quality of life can help reduce gun violence. It is the hopelessness that leads to the gun violence. So mental health support, community support, racial equality, job support, food security, school programs, all of those are very important programs, and they will all help over time. In fact, we're aligned with some groups. One is Hoosiers Concerned About Gun Violence, that is focused on legislation about gun ownership. Another one is Moms Demand Action. That's another great organization focused on legislation and also gun safety programs, handing out gun locks and other things. There are all kinds of programs that look at many of these factors, and some that look at very specific factors. One of the things they have in common is a lot of them are longer term. They take a while. You know, for us to improve gun legislation in Indiana, that's a slog. You know, we are working it. It is a very important thing to work, but it is not going to solve the problem now, today. So we have to, I am not trying to say there's one answer better than the others. All of these are very important programs. So what could our little group do? When we were doing our research, we aligned with Faith in Indiana. I don't know if you've heard of them. They've been getting more and more viewing in the news. They are a group that has focused on the neighborhoods in need and figuring out with them what they need. So this is not us sitting up on the north sides coming, oh, we want to help. We're here to save you. That is not what we're trying to do. We are here to partner with people who know what they need and what needs to happen. And they had found this solution that they were promoting in Indianapolis, and it worked. And we were so excited when we realized this, that is what we have glommed onto. And that is what we're here to talk about. The focus is on street gun violence. We found there is actually a solution. Faith in Indiana promoted it. It was actually implemented in Indianapolis in the late 90s for about 2 years, and it reduced gun homicides by almost 50%. And then leadership changed, people moved, and it got dropped. This works. So that's what I'm here to talk about today, is our group was started and became curved to say, we know this solution has worked. We want it to work again. We need the community to demand that they keep doing this program. And that's what you're going to hear me say over and over again tonight. So let's talk about street gun violence. The definition of it is interpersonal community violence with a firearm. So this doesn't include suicide. This does not include domestic violence. This really isn't about mass shootings. There's different factors that lead to a lot of those types of shootings that all have programs going after them. What we are talking about are the street shootings. And that's what those homicides mostly are that you read about in the paper. Okay? There are some key factors about these types of shootings. One is they're usually with illegal guns. This is not people who have registered their guns appropriately and bought them fairly. This is not about legal guns. Second, and one of the important things is, typically in a city our size, there is only a small group of people that is involved in this. It is probably 500 to 600 people who are at high risk of being involved at our level of gun violence, at our city size level. That plays an important role in the solution. And then what I consider the biggest thing is that it's really a lot around a low level of trust between the communities and, I'm going to say, the system. So obviously communities and the police, the judicial system, all the service agencies, there is no trust. And when there is no trust, then you cannot help the community grow, because what happens is you will not get, let's see if this is on this, the police will try to arrest somebody, but there will be no witnesses. Nobody will come forward. They will even talk to people who are hurt in the hospital, and they will not say who attacked them. They will take care of it themselves, because when the police arrest somebody, they get out too quickly, retaliation, it just comes in a big circle when there's no trust and people are so scared they won't talk to the police. It's a big, huge problem. And that's one of the things we have to focus on as this moves forward. Luckily, Indianapolis is doing something about it. So, now that we're all depressed on how bad this is, let's talk about the solution. This is a data-driven, highly focused strategy. It has been in existence for about 30 years. It started in several different cities. It has been used, the most successful one I know about is in Oakland, but in Boston and not Cincinnati, New Orleans, there's a couple other places that I know of. We really studied to understand what this strategy does. It's called gun violence intervention, and it has been shown, this is evidence-based, this is data-driven, to reduce homicides by even 30% within the first year of being implemented. That's what we are looking for, is that short term, how do we get people off of this track of homicides, okay? Now, there will always be hardened shooters. When you think about it, there will always be people who are going to be bad apples. You'll never convince all of these people to change. Those people need to be dealt with very strongly. And that's part of this program, is for anyone who continues in this vein, in this way of life, to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. So this is not a soft on crime thing. This is a pulling people apart and giving people who want a second chance a second chance. So let's talk about how that works. Okay, I think I already talked about that. Oh, hold on. I lost the slide I wanted. Just a second. Okay. I tried to move that slide in and it didn't come. So I normally show a video here of David Mohammed. David Mohammed is the head of the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform. He was involved in the implementation in Oakland, and then it became a national role. Now, in the wake of COVID and violence going up everywhere, his organization is in high demand in hundreds of cities. Indianapolis has a contract with him, and the organization, to help us implement this. So it would be much better to hear him talk about it. I am happy to send you the link so you can watch it on your own, but I didn't want to have to set up all the sound and stuff here. So what it is first identification. There's 4 pillars. First is identification. What you do is you figure out, it's a lot of data. It is looking at all the data from the last couple of years on homicides, on shootings, on victims and perpetrators, and identifying the core population of who is at high risk. Typically, that ends up being 400 to 500 people. Typically, it's 25 to 35-year-olds. It's not teenagers, although that number is rising. There are typically people who have been involved with the law multiple times, not in the right way. But that's the primary, it's a very specific set of people. The police will tell you, they know who the people are, but you need the data to really define it well. Okay, second pillar is communication. And what they do is they actually will reach out to these people who are at high risk. They will pull them in to a meeting and say, look, we know what you're involved in. Sometimes they'll even have film and evidence to show them. We know where you are right now. And here's what's going to happen. Either you let us help you find a different path, or within a year, you're probably going to be dead or in jail. Period. So they have these call-in sessions where they will canvass the neighborhood, they will talk to parents, they will talk to spouses, they will talk to all the people involved and try and get as many of these people to come in and listen as they can. And then what they do is they tell them, we will help you change direction. And unfortunately, for most of these people, they've been offered something before. They've been given a card, call this social service, call this. And it's hard. This is not easy to get those things coordinated. So the idea here is that they actually get a life coach. They get somebody who helps them navigate through all the programs that they need, whether it's help with housing, whether it's help with getting a job, whether it's help with food, whatever that might be, mental health help, drug addiction help, whatever those things might be. They ask them to commit to, let us help you, and we will walk the path with you, okay, to change your directions. In fact, and this is a controversial part of it, sometimes they will even pay these people a stipend to be part of this program. It's not very much, but it is a starting point to get people to come in. And it is amazing how many people, when they do this in other towns, like Oakland, they had people calling the police saying, why didn't you invite me? I want this. Because what they have found is in any crew or gang or group, we don't have formal, real gangs here yet, like the national level gangs. So they don't like to call it gang, it's too formal. They call it a crew gang group. Try to say that fast 5 times. What those folks, there's usually 1 or 2 people in those groups that is a hardened criminal, and the rest are just scared. The rest are just part of the culture. They're just trying to survive. And most of them want a different way to live. Most of them don't want to be there, but they have not gotten the opportunity or been able to sustain it when they are so much going on around them that they can't get out of it. They just can't get out of it on their own. So this is the opportunity for them to do that. The fourth, so it's the identification, communication, services, and then the fourth pillar is actually prosecution, where if they don't choose to do this, they make sure they will end up in jail for a long time. This is, if they do continue to participate in gun violence, they will be arrested, they will be prosecuted, and they will go to jail for a long time. So there's an accountability here. It is not letting them off the hook. If they go off the path, if they go back to that life, they will be prosecuted. Okay, so it's identification, communication, services, and enforcement are the 4 pillars. Part of that, what happens is they get out in the community and and this takes months to build, okay? Especially when there's no trust. Why would anybody believe any of this, right? So this is a very concerted effort to build these relationships, to talk to people, to get them to be willing to come in and talk to the police and hear the story, hear where they're at. It is not a quick fix, but it's very focused. They will pick an area. It might be a 4-block radius where they start and say, okay, this is the group we're going to focus on this 6 months, and we're going to bring the people here in, and then we are going to be in that neighborhood, and we are going to help them move to a different life. And then you can build that up higher in other neighborhoods around that. It takes a lot of work and a lot of dedicated people. But it works. It works. It is amazing how much the numbers come down. And it's treating people with respect. It's giving them opportunities that they had not had before, in a way for them to really be able to change their lives. So what's wonderful is that India is actually doing it again. Office of Public Health and Safety, OPHS, They call it GVRS, Gun Violence Reduction Strategy. It's I don't know how any city does it with all the different avenues they're trying to cover, whether it's mental health or crisis counseling or gun violence. They have so much to do. But this avenue is what we want to focus on, and we want to make sure they stay focused on. Tony Lopez was a counselor in the organization. He is now the deputy director who is in charge of this particular program. They are working with David Mohammed and JCR, the Criminal Justice, CJR. And they are hiring 50 people. I don't know if they've hired all 50 yet. They had 35 earlier this summer. Who are those peacekeepers? They are the life coaches. They are the ones who go talk to the families, the ones who pull them in, who have those conversations. This program is funded. We are very lucky. The American Rescue dollars, of course, again, Indy is trying to figure out how to spend all of those dollars effectively. But they have committed $45 million over 3 years of the rescue plan money to this program. So that's $12 million a year or more. They also are funding the programs that will help these people. So whether they're community-based or government-based or church-based, the programs that will help them with food and housing and other things to build the community, that funding is there too. They're giving grants to organizations to do that. So we are thrilled that they are launching this. Gun violence has already started coming down. I mean, when we started talking about this a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, there wasn't even enough mention of it in the newspaper. There wasn't enough mention of how do we do anything about this. And then all of a sudden, with the American Rescue dollars, it's been possible. In fact, Joe Biden actually mentioned it when he said, here's the relief money. One of the things he was commending was gun violence reduction strategies like this one. So this is actually top of mind for a lot of people for gun violence right now. The problem is keeping it there. And that's why we're here. There are a lot of success factors for making this work. I like to say we really need to build it into our DNA. We are trying to help people. This is a shift. We have tried tough on crime. We've tried the drug wars, failed. All of these, we've tried lots of different ways to help people. This is a different approach. We need to bake this into our DNA that we are not here to try and arrest everybody for everything. We are here to try and help people not get shot and not shoot. Okay, so that is what this is about. The success will require a lot of things. One of them is very close cooperation among different organizations. It's the police, it's the judicial system, it's all the support organizations, it's the community. They all have to work very closely together, and that's not always easy. One of the great things is almost all the community organizations are now supporting this program. So the 10-Point Coalition and other organizations who are involved, Stop the Violence, other organizations that help on the street do support this program, which is wonderful. Got to be strong leadership. There's got to be champions who will keep this top of mind, will keep it in the budget, will keep getting the right people. You have to have skilled people doing this work. This cannot be an entry-level job. You know, it needs very strong personnel to make this work. And most organizations are going to say that. It is true here. You have to implement it faithfully. It's one of the things we found that has, when we've looked at other cities and what happened in Indianapolis, was people tried to tweak it for their own purposes. They either try and expand it too fast. Okay, it worked here, let's make it do this. And it won't do that. You can't keep the focus on if you try and spread it too fast. Or a key person will leave and then it'll just fall apart. You have to keep all of the components going and build the community. Once the community starts taking care of itself, then it kind of rolls on and you can move it to another neighborhood. But you have to have it in your DNA and keep on building on that. It is not a one and done. You also have to be a pretty hard critic of what works. You can't just say this is the program and we'll just do it and check the box. You have to be able to pay attention to it. You need somebody looking at it to say what's working. Every city is different. Every city is going to have different dynamics between all their organizations. Somebody's got to keep their eye on it. And beyond that, we have to make sure it stays funded long term. Once those dollars are gone, when the American Rescue Plan dollars go away, we still think this needs to be in the budget. It was in the budget in the 90s. We still think it needs to be in the budget this year, or for the future years. It just needs to be part of our DNA. So there's some challenges here. If it works, why do we even need to talk about it? Why are we here? This is not, when we think about the people who are involved in this, a lot of times, this is very easy to get politicized, okay? This is not necessarily a comfortable place for people to talk about. And let me talk. So, for example, the people involved in this are often multiple time involved with the police, okay? They've had convictions before. It's very easy to say, why should we only have so many resources, why should we spend resources there when there's other people who are more deserving? It's amazing how much people will look at that and say, they've already made their choices. They've decided to go this life. Just let them go. Yeah, it is not a popular position to say, no, these people are worthy. We are all God's people. We are all valuable. We all deserve to live in safety. So it often is a hard sell. Wait a second. Another thing is costs. Let's talk about costs for a little bit. I told you it needs dedicated people. It needs very smart people. That's not cheap. It can be $5, $10, $15 million a year or more, which you think is a lot, and it is a lot. But the other side of that is what really caught my eye. The cost of violence. If we can reduce, NICJR did a study, and this is in Indianapolis, Indiana. Per homicide, this is an upper limit. This is an upper limit, okay. They're saying it costs our community, beyond the human costs, $1.2 million to deal with one homicide. Now that's including crime scene, police, hospitals, prison, criminal justice system, all of those things, okay? If somebody gets injured but not killed, it's still $700,000. I believe these are extreme end. I don't think this is an average at all. But even if it was just half of that, if we could reduce the gun homicides by 30%, and that would even if it was just 20 people not getting shot, think how much money that saves in our budget over time. So this actually pays for itself fairly quickly. I mean, it's not direct, obviously, because it takes time for all those costs, but it does reduce costs. It is not an expensive program. Okay, so this is what I was starting to talk about before. It's not in my neighborhood. It happens other places. Those people have made those choices. It's so overwhelming, it's easy to try to ignore it and say, I don't need to worry about this. And it's just not true anymore. I mean, first of all, no place is safe from it. The ones I showed you, they were 34th on the east side, 79th in Michigan, as well as downtown. So it is our neighborhood, but these are also our neighbors. And we believe all these folks deserve the right to live in safety, and so they can pursue a better way to live. The other thing that's a challenge for this is that this gets lumped into soft on crime. Like I said, you know, you pay stipends, you're paying somebody to not shoot? What? Really? Other people need money. There is an aspect of that, yes, where we are supporting people to change what they do. But there is also the enforcement of it. We're trying to get out of the revolving doors of the jail cells where people are not being witnesses, where we are not getting convictions, where we are not able to be effective with law enforcement. It is actually doing both. We believe this is not partisan at all, but it's a hard sell because people hear that, and this is also not strictly about gun control. I think most of us probably wish there were fewer guns, by a long shot. But this particular program is working within today's laws with the legislation and with the people we have now. It is not about changing the laws. It is working right now. Does that all make sense? Okay. So, like I said, politics doesn't really cater to this group of people that's impacted directly. So it's a hard sell. Another challenge is that not all the people in power believe in this. There are different factors. If you ever notice, you know, the chief of police will say something with the mayor and it all sounds wonderful, and then the police union leader will get up and say like the exact opposite. Indianapolis will go after something like this, and then at the state level, they will try and say, no, we really don't think the city's doing a good job. We'd like to take it over. There's all kinds of politics around this. And that is why it really needs a community voice saying, we demand that this happen. We will only vote for people who believe in this. We want this to happen. So, like I said before, changes in leadership will shift direction. It is even, you know, as much as I like Hogsett for a lot of things, when he came in, he said, I'm going to be the public safety mayor, and tried to do some things in his own way rather than follow the data-driven solution that works. So it's very easy for that to happen. Like I said, there is not a natural constituency for this group of people. They don't have power. That's one of the things that I bring for myself is the more I learn about where we are in social justice, where we are with systemic racism. I know I worked hard to get to where I am, but I also know that came with a lot of privileges and basically based on the accident of my birth. And so I believe I need to speak up and help and use those privileges and power that I have to help those that don't have a voice. And that's where this group has tugged at our heartstrings, and because there's a solution. So the answer to this, so what we're here to do is talk about having a community voice. We're getting bombarded by media all the time on all of these different things. We hear so much, it's impossible to sort it out. What we would like to do is get people educated about this gun violence reduction enough so that when you're looking at who to vote for, when you're seeing articles in the paper, when you're reading letters to the editor, you understand that program and can use your voice and your vote to say, yes, we want somebody who supports this program. We want it in their platforms. We want it in their State of the Union. We want it in their budgets. We need this to continue. And that will only happen if the community will is there. That has been shown in every city, is that if the community doesn't care enough to speak out about it, it will not continue. They can do a short, quick turn, like, okay, right now our homicides are down. Good, we can check that one off and move on. We can't. We got to keep going on it. We've got to demand accountability and transparency, communication. We have started that with the Office of Public Health and Safety. It's taken a little backslide as there's been changes in personnel, and that's where we have to keep on them to make sure they continue the communication. They are doing town halls, they are doing newsletters, that they're responding to people. That's where it takes dedicated people to make sure that happens, and that's what we are trying to build. Right, and absolutely. So that's our goal. Again, we rose out of the Intercongregational Social Action Committee. Our group Curve has about 20 active members. I think we have probably 150 followers on Facebook, people who are very interested in what we're doing. We are here to inform the public about it and then also build that community so we can get our voice to be heard by leadership to say, keep this program going. We need the mental health services, we need the domestic violence services, everything else, but we need this program to keep going. So our goal is to influence the city leadership with our voice and our vote to keep this going long term. We have 4 different teams. They're kind of self-explanatory: educators, influencers, networkers, researchers. If anybody is interested in joining into that group, we are always happy to have new people. We also would like to do a social media team, but none of us are technically there at the moment to do that. We are on Facebook, and that's where we actually have some Indiana senators who post into our Facebook page on things that are going on. We have talked to the prosecutor, we have talked to the mayor, we have talked to, David Mohammed has talked to us a few times himself. So we feel like we have some momentum going where we have got the ears of some of the leaders of the city. And the more community we build, the more we can do that influence. So what we're asking is, if anybody is interested in hearing more about this, there should be clipboards going around. You can sign up and we will put you on an email mailing list. I'm happy to send the slides and the link if you have a mailing list for the group, so that you can find us on Facebook. If you put CURVE, you get a whole lot of different responses. So it's CURV Indy. We spent a long time trying to come up with the name. And then what we hope to do is, there's an election coming up this fall. We hope to be able to say, here are candidates that support this. Here are candidates that are not so supportive or are thinking about something different, and help educate people on where they can speak up about this. So there is some forward momentum. But success, as I said, is dependent on the will of the community. So please, let's use our voice and our privilege and our power to help those who have been kept down. One of my favorite quotes, Austin Channing Brown's "I'm Still Here." It was said by a college student on a trip down south to see some of the horrific slave artifacts. And somebody from the North who is white said, "Staying silent is not an option for me anymore." And that's really where we feel we are. We cannot just let this keep happening. We have to get involved. So I've probably gone too long already. But I would love to answer questions, or Mary can answer questions. I don't know where we are time-wise.
Would you like to introduce your friend as well? Please stay.
This is Mary Boggs. She is an amazing lady who has spent a lot of years on a lot of social justice issues. She was one of the main people who got us to full-day kindergarten. Took 25 years, but she came from a state that had it, and she got here and said, this is not right.
That really makes me interested in this is I've volunteered for over 30 years in IPS in kindergarten and first grade. And I see these children come, they are just so expectant of success. But after they've been there, maybe a month or 2 months, they realize that, you know what, somebody knows their colors and I don't. And somebody knows their numbers and I don't. And to help them understand that we can do that, we can learn this, but they feel so down already. And that's why I volunteer, but I can't bring them all up. But I just say that I understand how these people get in this situation. They're already discouraged, and their parents don't feel confident in saying, it's going to be better for you. You know, my parents always thought what they wanted it to be better for us than it was for them. But they don't come from that culture. And most of these young people that have these guns, they're afraid not to. And that is just really scary to me. And I think we, as white community, have to step up and help because they can't do it themselves. But that's my passion. So that's what they say. I get on a soapbox and it's hard to get me off. But I'm so glad we got full-day kindergarten. That was a great step forward because they weren't even in school. But now we've got them in school, but we need to make it fair.
She is a longtime member at St. Albans Episcopalian Church at 46th and Emerson, if any of you are familiar with that. We'll do a question and answer period now. Anybody would like to ask the question, I would be happy to bring a microphone.
Who is it that decided to spend $12.5 million per year out of the American Rescue Plan?
The city council did the budget on, I don't know how much it was to start with, but $150 million went to the Office of Public Health and Safety. And so there are programs for mental health, there are programs for domestic violence, there are a new mental health center, they're also doing a new crisis team, so it's not police going towards domestic violence.
Was there a particular champion, either an individual on the city county council or a group or?
Actually, Faith in Indiana has been a big proponent that has pushed for this all along.
All right.
But as far as an individual, I don't think of one right now.
I think the fact that the money came from the federal government and we accepted it, that was huge. I mean, you just don't realize how many things we don't accept in Indiana. But we took it. And this thing that I thought was really wonderful is the city county council voted unanimously to do this program. So I think they want it to work, but we have to keep after it because we wouldn't have it if that money hadn't been given to us.
Other questions? Anyone?
He asked if it had started yet, and so they spent, gosh, was it almost a year hiring the director for it. They wanted the right person. Unfortunately or fortunately, lots of cities were trying to hire the same people. Indiana tried to get their package up high enough to attract good people. It took a while. They have found Tony Lopez to do it now. There's been a lot of training. They've been traveling to Oakland and other cities to learn about it. The National Institute does training, has sent a lot of people. I don't know where they had created 50 positions. They had at least 35 filled and trained, and they've never actually completely stopped from when they did it in the 90s. They took some little pieces of it where they would talk to individuals, but they didn't do it fully. So have launched it this year, but I don't know that it's fully staffed yet. So it's launching now. Did that help or not?
So I heard you asking us to be aware and know, how to vote and help with this. Is there anything else that we can use our voices or, what should we be doing
Well, I think it's up to every organization to choose what's a strength for you where you can help in the community. Anything that helps improve communities, that is partnering with them to do that improvement is great. It can be anything from basketball, tournaments to cleaning up trash to having programs. I mean, all of these are critical. We are not trying to say we need to stop doing anything else and just do this. I think they will want communities to be involved as much as possible. I think it's following the leadership of what those communities are asking for, rather than us going in and saying, we know what you want, because we don't. So I'm not giving you a specific answer. I love the other gun violence organizations, Moms Demand Action, Hoosiers Concerned About Gun Violence. Moms Demand Action has a lot of rallies, and they do a lot of petitioning at the courthouse, at the State House. And there's a lot of calls out to send emails or call your legislators about certain things. They have done a lot, and that's the kind of thing we would pass on our Facebook page as well. So, for example, the state actually did try to put in a oversight committee over Indianapolis police. And there was a huge outcry to say, stop. We don't want that. And Moms Demand Action, Faith in Indiana, other groups were all part of that to say, no, we don't need another layer of bureaucracy. We don't need, I'm not going to get political, sorry.
Anybody else?
Am I live? Thank you. What might be a realistic thing for people like us? Let's face reality. We're mostly people who are not very familiar with the communities involved here. I mean, what sort of frontline opportunities are there for us? Tutor. What can we do? Of course, we should financially support this and do the political things, but I mean the in the trenches kind of things that some of us could do.
So it's a really good question. I mean, there are so many groups out there that work on all of these angles. I mean, one of the groups that I like, Faith in Indiana, I don't know if you're familiar with them, because they are grassroots of those communities saying this is what we need. I don't know if you saw in the news what they did recently was they had 800 community leader voices telling Hogsett, we need crisis teams to go on calls to homes. And he did it. And he thanked Faith in Indiana in his speech about it for being part of the leadership to push that happening. Faith in Indiana they have a political arm which gets into who to vote for. They also have, but their not-for-profit arm, one of the things our church did was actually work the voting lines, getting people out for the vote. Don't tell them what to do, but just helping people get registered and helping people vote. That's a big one. That's part of the complexity of this, is because all of these programs are good. If it's childcare and tutoring is what your specialty would be, or if it's having a health care, if it's having a clinic somewhere, all of those things are wonderful. You have to find the right people to partner with. And this comes up all the time with us, is how do we find those right things? And they're so numerous. Our focus has been on this, keeping the leadership focused on doing this program, but good luck.
Anyone else?
One of the things that I would just want to say, one more thing, they showed a study where programs that are there for kids So in schools and mentoring and all that, if their parents aren't also involved in programs, those programs for the kids don't work. And vice versa. If the parents get involved in programs, but they don't see hope for their kids because their kids are not getting help, those programs for the parents won't work. We need all of those programs. So it's wherever your strength is to help. Do you want to add anything?
I have one last question.
Sure.
I mentioned to you before the program began that we have become a Matthew 25 church. And what that means, if I best understand it, is that we have, as a congregation, made a statement of mission to go outside of the church and to try to do the best that we can in helping all of the things that are, the adverse things that are helping or hurting our community. And obviously this is one of those things that's at the very top of the list. Would you recommend that we seek a representative from this church to possibly join Curve? Is there something through that organization
Absolutely.
that we could
Absolutely.
help reach our goals?
I also think, yes, that would be great. If somebody wanted to join, if they had a passion for either sharing this or doing research or talking to community leaders, we were talking to business associations and others about how we get the leaders to continue this. We would love to invite anybody to join with us on that. I think a lot of it is figuring out, where's your area of influence and what are the neighborhood associations who are paying attention to what's going on in the community and finding out what they need. It's asking them to lead you in what that will make their life better in their communities. So one community organization, the East, well, that's probably not you guys though. Yeah, no, that's too far away. That's right. Okay.
If anyone wants to be on the, attend one of our inter-congregational social action network meetings, they're on Zoom and they're 9 o'clock on the third Thursday of every month. And you are more than welcome just to make a note somewhere and I'll get you on the mailing list. It is not hard. And it is amazing to see people dedicated in almost every social action issue you can think of. But you maybe bring us a new one. But if you could just visit, you wouldn't have to commit yourself, but you could come and see. And so if someone from your church or more than one from your church would like to do that. And then, of course, we'd love to have you join a Curve team, but I think it would be good for you to see the overall picture. And then our networkers are working really hard to find places for us to come make these presentations. And our educators are keeping the information as current as they can. And Karen is our chair of your team leader, that's what we call her. And then the research person, we have an amazing gentleman who retired from IU Health. And his wife says he is on the computer 24/7. And we believe it because we must get 5 articles a day on this particular topic from different places in the country. And then the influencers are the people that are working to find those people who will have an influence on people that we may not even know. They're not in a church, they're not, in a business maybe, but we need to know who they are. So we have lots of organization within our section of Curve, but I think just visiting once, and if you don't want to do that, if you want to visit us, we meet the 4th Tuesday on Zoom of every month. So just let us know if you're interested. It's real easy to join. We'd be happy to have your influence. Thank you.
So thank you for anybody who filled out the sign-up form. You will get an email, probably from Mary, welcoming you, and then at that point you can tell her if there's something specific you're interested in, either the third Thursday ecumenical or the Curve meetings themselves or any of the teams.
Well, Karen, we'd like to thank you for a very meaningful, enlightening, and well-organized presentation. I think I know that I've learned a lot, and I hope the rest of you have as well on this extremely important, and for you to come give your time. So thank you very much. Usually at this time we announce what our next program is going to be. It was supposed to be Dan Wakefield, but he is having some health issues, so we're a bit in a quandary at the moment, so stay tuned. We'll let you know soon. Typically, the men's prayer and study group, we've done the study part, so we usually like to try and close in prayer. So if you would with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for people like Karen and her friend who work tirelessly on social issues that help carry out God's word and the meaning for what we as a congregation should be doing as well. Thank you for shining a light on this significant problem in our community and in our nation, and on those who are hurting so badly. We thank you for all that you do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you all for coming.